welcome to all the live viewers. Welcome replay viewers. James J is going to do a presentation on crystal energy and how you can feel healthier and have more peace and serenity. James, take it away.
Hey, Brenny, my good friend Brenny. Yeah, the reason I wanted to come on today was because I just finished a training program with my good friend and teacher, Sean Zenja, who is actually a crystal master. I turn my camera on for a minute so people can see me. And he's a master of using quartz crystals. And he's also been a Feng Shui master practitioner for almost 40 years. Now, my wife Helen and I have also been practicing Feng Shui for about 25, 26 years. And we actually started one of the first schools of Feng Shui in the United States. And we've trained practitioners literally all over the world. We actually go to China a couple times a year. In fact, we've got a China tour coming up, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. But I just wanted to just give a very brief, I don't want to go longer than 15, 20 minutes, but a very brief intro into using dynamic energy crystals in Feng Shui work. Now, if you're not familiar with Feng Shui is the ancient Chinese art and science of bringing a balanced sense of harmony into the home. And we do that by various and sundry means, by moving furniture, creating flow, straightening things up, hanging what we call Feng Shui cures, or actually literally moving walls and doors and that sort of thing. And the theory is that when you have a home that's balanced and harmonious, it brings the good things that you want into life. Now, some of the most powerful objects that we have in the world, in our environment, are natural crystals. Natural crystals form the basis of our entire electronics industry, our entire computer industry. When people talk about a chip, a computer chip, well, that's actually a piece of silica. And silica is the base element in creating quartz crystals. They grow, and they take millions and millions of years to grow. And the thing about the quartz crystals is that they have an inherent energy. As a matter of fact, you can apply pressure to a crystal and it will create a stream, a flow of electricity. So they actually can produce their own electricity. And we found that by bringing Feng Shui crystals into our work, we can really enhance what we're doing. And I did want to show you a couple of the types of crystals that we use in our Feng Shui work. Now, this is a very large, it looks kind of like a rose quartz, but it's actually I think it's a tangerose quartz. And quartz comes in many, many, many different combinations of minerals so that it can look very different. So we can have smoky quartz, which is a more darker quartz in nature. Here I have a necklace that's made from smoky quartz. Very, very beautiful. Actually, no, that's amethyst. Sorry. I looked at it in the dark, and it's amethyst. And this is a type of quartz as well. It just has a violet glow. In fact, amethyst has been called the drinking stone because in ancient times, if you wore amethyst or even put amethyst stones in your drink, you would not get a hangover. So think about that tonight, happy hour. We can have smoky quartz, which is a darker quartz. We can have rose quartz. Here I have a nice rose quartz necklace. And the reason I'm showing necklaces is because you could actually use quartz crystals to enhance your own personal qi, which we call in Feng Shui life force, or qi. So the different types of quartz have different qualities to them. This is a beautiful pink hue. And then, of course, there's lapis, which is not a type of quartz. It's a different stone, but also has healing properties. And then I know one of Brenny's favorites, citrine. Citrine is a beautiful yellow color and looks kind of like this. It's a very beautiful yellow. And citrine has often been called the merchant stone because citrine is said to call in money and prosperity. As a matter of fact, if you stick with me until the end of this presentation, which I said is going to be short, don't worry, because I know people are burned out on sitting 2-hour webinars, so I'm trying to keep it 15, 20 minutes. You'll have the opportunity to receive a free citrine crystal mala. And we call them malas because it's a prayer bead, but a lot of people wear them for fashion. And this one's exceptionally beautiful because it has amethyst mixed in with the citrine. So you wear it for good health, and you also wear it for money, to make money. So anyway, moving along. The crystal you see in this picture was placed in a missing area of a home. Now, in Feng Shui, we use something called the Ba Gua. And if there's an area of the home that's missing, we need to do something in order to fill that area in, either energetically, which means we do something on a transcendental level by placing an object, or we do something that's more reasonable, what we call mundane, and that means if it's missing, you build the walls and you just fix it. But of course, most of the time we're going to be using these transcendental cures, these metaphysical cures. Now, by placing this pointed crystal pointing up in a missing wealth corner, that's going to send this massive amount of natural current straight up into the air to really build that area up. So a lot of times you can use Feng Shui to enhance, or you can use the crystals to enhance whatever style of Feng Shui you're using, whether it's BTB Feng Shui, compass Feng Shui, flying star Feng Shui. We have a really great method of gridding out a flying star pattern. And so regardless of the type of Feng Shui you use, you can add crystals in. And sometimes people ask me, James, can I get away from putting this bamboo flute over here? Isn't there something else? Or can I get away from putting, a classic one is a three-legged toad, what they call a money frog. And sure, there is. You can use natural, beautiful crystals to take the place. And not only are the cures we use in Feng Shui powerful because we imbue them with our intention, but the crystals already have an innate power to begin with. So just by placing a crystal in a location, you can create that sense of harmony and also that sense of cleansing the environment. Now here, if you look closely, you see two beautiful rose quartz boulders, really. Now, rose quartz does not come as points. So the rose quartz you see that's pointed will actually be cut and polished. So rose quartz is an amorphous shape. So it grows in giant rocks, crystals. But it's a very beautiful stone to use, especially for relationships. So we have an area in our home that we call the relationship corner or the marriage corner. And by placing these two beautiful rose-colored crystals in that corner, we can enhance this relationship that we have. And we just conducted our very first international crystal energy Feng Shui practitioner training program. And in the center, you see Feng Shui consultant and crystal master, Sean Zenja, in his beautiful, beautiful crystal gallery located in Sausalito, California. And so we began the day, this beautiful day. You could hear the waves lapping on the shore and going into Sean's. All I can say is the place just glows. He has so many nice crystals in there. And his dedication for the past 15 years has been going to Brazil, picking out the best crystals he can find and bringing them back to the US and to Europe to use in Feng Shui work, and also to China. So we began the day in his shop, and he explained the various qualities of crystals. There's a lot of information. What type of crystal do you use for protection? What type of crystal do you use to generate energy? What type of crystal do you use for clearing? So on and so forth. So we went through all the different types of crystals. And then we spent a little bit of time making crystal grids. Now, a lot of people know about gridding with crystals, but there hasn't been a lot done with creating crystal grids for Feng Shui. And the beauty of using crystal grids for Feng Shui is that you don't have to use museum quality crystals. What I mean by that, see, let me grab one here. And now this is a very, very nice crystal, very expensive crystal. And so let's say you wanted to grid with 4 crystals like this. Well, it's going to cost you quite a bit. You can see the beautiful citrine color, very natural. It's a double crystal. It's got double points. It's very spectacular. But in Feng Shui work, we're lucky because crystals, and here's one, you can use these giant quartz crystals, which aren't as cosmetically stunning as the specimen quality ones, but they have just as much, if not more, energy. So we can get away with buying, instead of buying a $500 beautiful museum crystal, we can now buy one for $50, which is even larger. And this type of crystal would be large enough to grid an entire home. And I'll speak about grids in a minute, or grid an entire property. And we did a lot of work with that during the course. You can also make small grids. So here we're making little tabletop travel grids. So if you're traveling, you're in a hotel, you could set up a grid by the door for protection. You could set up a grid under your bed, help you sleep. So there's really no limit. The simplest grids, we use 4 or 8 energy grade crystals in the 4 corners, or the 4 directions. So we'd have either 4 or 8. And you can either point them in, and right now I'm sitting in a pointing in grid. I've gridded, I can move my camera in a minute if I show you, I've gridded under my desk so that I would have a higher energy level and be able to think clearer during this presentation. So, and it actually is very helpful. So these little travel grids you can create. You can also use spheres in the center. It's not necessary, but a sphere in the center will help bring the energy in and then circulate it. Now you can also point your crystal grids outward, and that would be if you really wanted to expand. So I would say if a client asked me, I'm starting out this business, I really want it to take off, I would do a crystal grid expanding outward into the community. So that's another simple way of using crystal grids. So here Master Shan Zhenjia is showing us how the various crystals that we use can create a different feeling, and you can actually feel it. We were using things like black tourmaline, which is a very, very powerful crystal for protection. And you can even get a little black tourmaline ball or sphere. And tourmaline is relatively inexpensive, but it's a very powerful stone. You can even carry it with you if you feel under threat, or if you're doing some sort of consulting work and you want to bring some protection. We use a lot of selenite, very beautiful stone, and then different size quartz crystals. So you can go from small ones to do like a little grid to the big, like I said, energy grade. And this is what we call our large energy grade crystals. And this is what we call our medium energy grade crystals. And you can see the beauty of this is you can buy a $25 crystal like this, and it can clear your entire house or your entire room. It's amazing. Or you can upgrade it to this. These are about 10 inches, and these are about 6. And these are about $50 a stone. So for $200, you can get an entire property. It's amazing. And you don't really need more cures. Now, I'm going to go through a little bit more how you can use it. Put my grid back together here. So here we were making tabletop grids. Then we made some chair grids. Now we use spheres for this because we wanted to get a very spherical energy. We wanted it to kind of soothe our personal chi. And in Feng Shui, we always have our environmental chi. Okay, so that's going to be the energy of a building and a location. And then we also have our personal chi, and that's going to be the energy of us personally. And we want to enhance not only our environmental chi, but also our personal chi. So here we're enhancing our personal chi by setting up a small spherical grid with a nice piece of rose quartz behind for support. And each one of us sat in this chair, and everybody who sat in the chair had a completely, as I say, they had a unique experience. And then when we changed the stones, they again had a different experience. So you could tell by the type of stone whether it made you feel uplifted. I remember there was one in particular that I sat in where my heart felt like, like the night before Christmas. I was just all excited. All of a sudden, excitement came over me for no reason. Just just a regular day, a regular afternoon, all of a sudden here I am, I'm really excited. So that might not be the type of grid you'd want to put under your bed when you're trying to sleep. You would want something that would be more subduing in nature. I brought up the Bagua. This is one of our basic Feng Shui tools that we use. It delineates the 8 different areas of our life, such as wealth, recognition, marriage and relationships, children, benefactors and support, our career or our path in life. Then we have our awakening, our knowledge, our self-cultivation, and our family, and then back to wealth. And so we can actually enhance any portion of this Bagua by utilizing natural crystals. And I'm not going to get too deep into that. I mean, you're certainly welcome to take our training, and we don't have any dates right now, but they will be posted at the links I deliver at the end, and really get to, feel for the crystals and be able to designate which crystals are best where. So as I mentioned, you could do a grid on your entire property, and we happen to do that down on a large property down in Marin County in California. And we set up the grid, and then there was just one very large double terminated energy grade citrine crystal in each of the 4 corners. And citrine is a very powerful stone, and it's a rare stone. It's rarer than just clear quartz. But like I said, it was energy grade, so it wasn't the museum quality like you see here. It was more rough in nature, but man, people could really feel the difference on the property the next day. And just a little anecdote: the reason I got into crystal energy feng shui in the first place was because I was teaching one of my CFSP, Certified Feng Shui Professional Training programs in Seattle last year. And Sean had sent me a grid to grid the location, and it arrived on the day of the class, so I didn't really have time to unpack it. Actually, I had to go to the post office and get it, and then set it up. But I noticed in the place I was renting to hold the class that I pulled out an electromagnetic field meter, a Gauss meter, and the whole house registered way off the scale. I mean, this, in some places, some municipalities, some countries, the place would be condemned. The electricity was so high. And I was like, oh, great. Here we are. I'm teaching feng shui in a house that's frying, literally. That morning, the morning session, I looked over at one of the participants, a young woman, and she was, holding her head, looking down and rubbing her head. And I said, do you have a headache? She goes, yeah, I got a migraine. And I said, you get that often? She goes, no, not really, but it just ruins everything, I said, well, if you need to take some time, lie down or whatever. And she said, no, I'll soldier through. I've got some ibuprofen. I'll do as best I can. And then we broke for lunch. And while we were out at lunch, I set up a grid in the house. So I used a large energy grade crystals, and I set one in each corner of the home pointing in. No, actually, I pointed them out because I wanted it to clear out that EMF, that electromagnetic radiation. So I pointed them out in each corner. Actually, I did put a large sphere in the center as well. So everybody was out to lunch. They come back to lunch, and this young woman walks in the door and goes, wow, what happened? And I said, what do you mean? She goes, as soon as I walked in, my headache went away, and it was replaced by this light feeling. And I went, well, I just set up a crystal grid. It was one of the first grids I'd ever done. So I was like, okay, I believe in it. So because it has that energy, it's not necessary you have to believe in it. It's a physical fact that quartz creates an energetic field. And a lot of times when people work in high electromagnetic radiation fields, by wearing quartz crystal, now you don't have to wear a big thing like this, but if you could wear a pendant. This is a amethyst pendant, or one of the mala necklaces or bracelets that I was mentioning, that I'm going to give you one free at the end. that will actually help protect you in that field. Now, it's always better to get out of the field if possible, but that's not always possible. So if you can't remove yourself from the field, then you can bring quartz in to counteract that. And this is generally where the areas are in the Bagua. And you could simply, literally set up a grid in the whole house, and you could set up a grid in each of the 8 or 9 areas of the Bagua. Or you could pick the whole house and maybe 1 or 2 or 3 problem areas in your life. So for instance, if you're having wealth problems, which seems to be the big one everybody brings up, struggling financially, you could use the big energy grade crystals, 1 in each corner, and then in the wealth corner, you could create just a simple grid, maybe even just using smaller, these are actually quite nice amethyst crystals, a small 4-grid crystal grid just in the wealth area, and you determine that by this diagram. Or you could grid that, if that falls within a room, then you could grid that entire room. Okay, so you'd have a house grid and a room grid, and we call these we call it the micro Bagua and the macro Bagua. So the macro Bagua is your entire house, your entire property, and the micro Bagua, you can bring it down to just a room or even just your bed, or like I'm doing right now, I'm sitting in the middle of a grid under my desk. So there's a lot of ways you can do it. Now, another important thing we do in Feng Shui is that if we have a client that complains of, let's say, ongoing stress, ongoing illness, chronic fatigue, chronic disease, we will often douse around the perimeter of the building to see if we can find any of these things we call zones of noxious energy. And noxious energy zones can be anything from an earthquake fault running under the house, underground flowing water. It could even be in pipes. I did a house once, they were above a stream and didn't know it. It came in a mile behind the house and exited a half mile down the road, and they didn't know they were right on top of a moving body of water. So other things, you have fractures, changes in material. So you could have granite up against, some other type of basalt or something. And so that causes stress. Also, the tides, the effect of the moon can pull pieces of the land at different rates, and that can cause an upset. So what we theorize is that these zones are sending some sort of noxious energy, toxic energy, deleterious energy into the habitants above. So very simple to fix. The first thing you have to do, and there's a lot of people you can learn dowsing from. One that comes to mind is Richard Feather Anderson, very, very famous dowser, a very good teacher. I highly recommend him. I studied with him quite a bit. These are dowsing rods. And so you can simply walk the perimeter of the house, and once you're used to using the dowsing rods, they'll either cross or they'll open or they'll do something funny when you cross one of these lines. And once you cross a line, so here we can use the dowsing rods at the bottom. We could also use a pendulum. A lot of you are familiar with pendulum dowsing, and I really prefer to use a pendulum with a natural crystal. Here we have one with a Bagua. So for you Bagua, Feng Shui practitioners, if you want one of these, drop me an email. It's got the ever-changing Bagua. It's got the ladder heaven Bagua, so you can walk in any location and see where the trigrams lay. It's also got a very powerful talisman on the back for protection. So it's very cool. But the natural crystal, that's the key. And you can douse to find these lines as well. I prefer to use the rods to find lines because it's very direct. I don't have to ask as many questions. Once you find the lines, then we're going to do something where the line enters and exits, enters and exits. And simply the best thing I've found so far to do is just place a nice big energy grade quartz crystal. You can point it up, straight up and down in the ground, or you can point the point back toward the source of the direction at which the energy is coming. So for example, if you can see my mouse here, this bottom red arrow, if the energy is traveling this direction, and you figure out the direction by using the dowsing rod as well. You would place this crystal so that the point was pointing away from the house, pushing that energy out. And then if it's coming out the other side, then you can simply place it straight up and down. And that will, what that does is that once the line of force, whatever it is, hits the crystal, it breaks it up, disperses it. It disperses that toxicity. The line's still there, but things build up over long periods of time and distance. So we break it, and then we put one at the other side, and it continues on again. So in between the two crystals is where we have the noxious free zone. It's very simple once you learn how to dowse and find these. And you can also put them in the house. So let's say a person sleeps on one of these lines, then you can put it on either side of the bed. I know Brenny's friend Werner does a lot of work with dowsing, a lot of work with noxious energies, and he has a lot of great tools to deal with. And a lot of them are quartz based. So quartz is our friend. Quartz is our helper. So here we have this energy grade. This is an energy grade, what they call a Tangerose crystal. It's a very beautiful crystal, and that's the medium size. So this would be a good size, and this, as I mentioned, the one I showed you is probably 4 or 5 inches, right in that area. And that would be good to do an entire room or a small house. And then we start getting up to larger ones, like this one. It looks a little darker there. It looks more like smoky quartz. It probably does have a little bit of smokiness in it. We use these larger ones to do a larger house or an entire piece of property. Okay. Then we can also bring in spheres, which spheres help to harmonize. Whenever you feel some sort of disharmony, bring a sphere into the center, and that tends to harmonize everything. And we're almost done here. This is natural amethyst on I don't know if it's your right or left. I think it flips. But that's the violet color is natural amethyst, and then we have natural citrine right next to it as geodes. Very beautiful, very powerful. And this is in a wealth corner. So both amethyst and citrine are the most powerful wealth generating stones. This is a beautiful amethyst crystal mala, and it's got 108 amethyst beads with a couple spacers, and these are traditionally used to count prayers, but they're also used to bring protection to the person's life force. So you'll always see, and I've gone to China like 27 times now, and whenever you meet a monk or a nun in Tibet as well, they always are wearing a mala. It's called a mala, M-A-L-A. And they can either count their prayers or they wear it for protection. And depending on what type of energetic they want to invoke, that would be the stone that they would use. Or they could use wood. A lot of times I like to use wood too. And, you know, people say, well, you're talking about all these crystals and now you got wood. Well, wood has energy as well. It's just not quite as powerful as quartz. But it's a natural, you know, plants have energy as well. And just a couple more. And this is black agate. Very, very beautiful. I love this one. Very beautiful. This one is what we call blue chalcedony. Chalcedony is another type of quartz which is used a lot for healing. So it'll bring a real sense of healing. And this one is also a wealth one because it has fish. See these little silver fish? And then it has a money bag or a wealth bag. And you notice you can wear these either as wrap-around bracelets, because they're a little bit stretchy, or as a very elegant necklace. I mean, they are stunning, really. And this is the citrine one. Now, since you made it all the way, I would like to give you a citrine mala for free. All you have to do is pay for the shipping. Very beautiful crystal. And citrine is good for wealth and abundance. And it also has amethyst. So this is, you can be worn as either a necklace or a wrap bracelet. So it's a very beautiful citrine mala, and we'll actually give you that that feeling of abundance. And it's often been called the merchant stone because it does tend to attract money. So enjoy, just click on the button and go for it. All you have to do is pay for shipping. All right, thank you, bye.